Daniel Harper stood at his post outside the royal chambers, his uniform crisp and his weapon secured at his side. He had been working on this ship for 3 months now, and every day felt the same. His job was simple: protect Queen Valaris of the Tharn Empire while she traveled through space, visiting different worlds and making friends with other species. The Tharn were not like humans. They were tall, much taller than Daniel, with skin that glowed and changed colors depending on how they felt. Queen Valaris was the most beautiful of her kind, standing almost 7 feet tall with grace that made everyone stop and stare. Her people had been traveling the stars for thousands of years, long before humans even knew that other planets existed. Daniel was the only human on the security team. The rest were Tharn warriors called the Crimson Shields. These guards were famous across the galaxy. They had protected the royal family for over 1,000 years, and they never failed. At least, that was what everyone said. When Daniel first joined the team, the Crimson Shields looked at him like he was nothing. To them, humans were children playing with toys they did not understand. Earth had only been exploring space for a short time. What could one human possibly know about protecting royalty? But Daniel worked hard and learned their customs. He showed respect and did his job well. Slowly, some of the guards began to nod at him in the hallways. The ship they traveled on was called the Celestial Dawn. It was a Federation vessel, neutral ground where different species could meet and talk without fear. The ship was large, with long corridors and many decks. Daniel had memorized every route, every exit, and every place where danger might hide. He had been a soldier before this assignment. He fought in the border skirmishes against the Krell Syndicate, a group of pirates and criminals who attacked human colonies. Daniel knew what combat felt like. He knew the smell of fear and the sound of weapons fire. That experience made him different from the other humans who worked on diplomatic missions. On this particular day, Daniel was checking his equipment when he heard a voice over the communication system. It was Lisa Monroe, the chief engineer. Her voice sounded worried. "All security personnel, we have unknown contacts on our sensors. Multiple ships are coming out of the nebula. They are moving fast." Daniel's training kicked in immediately. He pressed the button on his comm device. "This is Harper. I am moving to the Queen's location now." He walked quickly through the corridor, his hand resting on his weapon. The Crimson Shields were already moving into position around Queen Valaris's chambers. Their armor shined under the lights, decorated with symbols that told the story of their victories. Commander Thex, the leader of the Crimson Shields, saw Daniel approaching. The commander's skin flashed a dull orange, which meant he was annoyed. "Human, stay in the outer corridor. This is probably nothing. Just rocks and ice from the nebula." Daniel wanted to argue, but he knew better. He took his position where he was told, but his instincts were screaming at him. He had seen how attacking ships moved, and these were not rocks. These were hunters. The first explosion hit the ship hard. The floor shook under Daniel's feet, and he grabbed the wall to keep from falling. The lights flickered, and then switched to emergency red. Alarms started screaming throughout the ship. Lisa's voice came over the comm again, and this time she was shouting, "Hull breach in sections 4 through 7. We are under attack. These are Vax death squads. They are boarding the ship." Daniel felt his blood go cold. The Vax were killers for hire, the best in the galaxy. They never failed a contract. If they were here, someone had paid them a fortune to kill Queen Valaris. Commander Thex's skin turned bright red, the color of alarm and fear. He started shouting orders to his warriors. "Fall back to the emergency shuttles. We must get the Queen off this ship now." The Crimson Shields formed a tight circle around Queen Valaris and began moving down the corridor. Daniel fell into step with them, his weapon now drawn and ready. He scanned every shadow, every doorway, every vent in the ceiling. The corridors were filled with smoke and the sound of fighting. Other crew members were running in panic, trying to find safety. Daniel could hear energy weapons firing somewhere below them. The Vax were cutting through the ship's defenders like they were nothing. They reached the primary shuttle bay and found it destroyed. Flames covered everything. The escape ships were nothing but twisted metal and burning fuel. There was no way out through this route. "Secondary bay," Commander Thex ordered. "Move quickly." They turned and ran through the maintenance tunnels. These passages were narrow and dark, meant for repair crews, not for running battles. Queen Valaris had to duck her head to fit, but she moved without complaint. As they ran, the Queen spoke to Daniel. Her voice was calm, which seemed impossible given the situation. "Lieutenant Harper, your people are new to space, yet you do not seem afraid. Why is that?" Daniel glanced at her while keeping his eyes on the corridor ahead. "Fear does not help anyone survive, Your Majesty. Clear thinking and good training do." She looked at him with her large eyes that seemed to glow from within. "Simple wisdom. Perhaps this is why humans are doing so well." They came out of the maintenance tunnel near the secondary shuttle bay. For a moment, Daniel thought they might make it. Then, the wall in front of them exploded. Black figures poured through the hole in the wall. The Vax looked like giant insects, covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. They had multiple arms, some holding weapons, and others ending in sharp blades. Their movements were fast and coordinated, like a hive mind working together. The Crimson Shields opened fire immediately. The corridor lit up with energy blasts. Bright blue from the Tharn weapons, and sickly green from the Vax. The noise was deafening. 2 of the shields fell in the first few seconds, their armor melted through by concentrated fire. "Protect the Queen!" Commander Thex screamed, but his voice had a sound Daniel had never heard from him before. It was the sound of panic. More Vax came from the side passages. They were surrounded now, outnumbered, and running out of options. The Crimson Shields were fighting hard, but the Vax were better. They moved like machines, never wasting a shot, never hesitating. Then Daniel saw something that made his heart stop. One of the Vax threw a small device into the middle of their group. It landed on the floor and started beeping, a light on top pulsing faster and faster. Daniel knew exactly what it was. He had seen them in training videos, had studied them in tactical briefings. It was a plasma implosion grenade, designed to create a miniature star for just a few seconds. Everything within 20 feet would be turned to ash. There would be nothing left, not even bones. "Grenade!" he shouted as loud as he could. What happened next would change everything. The legendary Crimson Shields, the warriors who had never failed, who had sworn to die for their queen, they ran. Commander Thex turned and sprinted away from the grenade. The other guards scattered, their training and honor forgotten in the face of certain death. Only one person moved toward the danger. Daniel Harper ran forward, his boots hitting the metal floor in rhythm with his racing heart. Queen Valaris stood frozen in the center, her skin flashing white with pure terror. Time seemed to slow down as Daniel ran. He could see the grenade's light pulsing faster. 3 seconds until it exploded. He could hear his own breathing, loud in his ears. 2 seconds. He reached the Queen and threw his body into hers, driving her toward the wall. 1 second. They hit the floor together, and Daniel twisted to cover her body with his own. He spread himself over her as much as he could, knowing it probably would not matter, knowing they would both die. "I am sorry I could not do more, Your Majesty," he whispered. Then the world turned into fire and pain. The explosion should have killed them both instantly. The plasma implosion grenade was designed to leave nothing behind. But something unexpected happened in the half-second before the blast. The ship's damaged emergency systems triggered a force field in their section. The field was weak and broken, meant only to stop air from escaping when there was a hull breach. It was never designed to stop a military weapon, but it held for just over 1 second before it burned out. That 1 second made all the difference. The blast wave hit Daniel's back like a giant hammer made of fire. His armor took some of the impact. The material was designed by human engineers to protect soldiers, and it did its job. But the heat went through anyway. Daniel felt his skin burning. He felt his lungs being crushed by the pressure. The world turned white, with pain that went beyond anything he had ever known. But he did not move. He kept his body between the Queen and the fire. Every part of his mind was screaming at him to run, to get away from the pain. But Daniel Harper had never left a job unfinished. He had made his choice, and he would see it through. When the heat finally stopped, the corridor looked like the inside of a furnace. The walls were black with char. The Vax attackers who had been close to the blast were just pieces scattered across the floor. The ones farther back had been thrown against the walls hard enough to break their armor. Daniel's ears were ringing so loud he could not hear anything else. His vision had dark spots floating in it. But he felt movement under him. He felt the Queen's chest going up and down. She was breathing. She was alive. He tried to push himself up, but his arms would not work right. The pain that adrenaline had been holding back now crashed over him in waves. He collapsed back onto the floor next to Queen Valaris. Each breath felt like breathing fire. Through the smoke and the haze of pain, Daniel saw shapes coming toward them. For a moment, his hand tried to reach for his weapon. He thought the Vax were coming back to finish the job, but then he recognized the armor of the Crimson Shields. Commander Thex fell to his knees beside them. His face was changing colors in ways Daniel had never seen before. The commander's hands were shaking as he helped Queen Valaris sit up. "Your Majesty." Thex's voice was barely a whisper. I. The Queen held up her hand to silence him. Her skin was showing streaks of gold, an emotion Daniel did not understand but knew was important. She turned to look at Daniel, and her eyes were filled with something that needed no translation. It was gratitude, mixed with disbelief. "He stayed," she said quietly. Lisa Monroe arrived moments later with a medical team. She had fought through 2 decks full of Vax to reach them. When she saw Daniel's injuries, her face went pale. "We need to get him to medical right now," she ordered the team. Daniel tried to say something, tried to ask if the Queen was really okay, but the words would not come out. The adrenaline was finally giving up. His vision was going dark around the edges. He could feel himself falling into unconsciousness. His last thought before the darkness took him was a simple question. Did I really save her? Or will we both still die? 3 days passed before Daniel woke up. When he finally opened his eyes, he was in a medical bay. But not the one on the Celestial Dawn. This was different. Cleaner. With equipment he recognized as human-made. He was on an Earth Alliance ship. Lisa was sitting in a chair next to his bed. She looked exhausted, like she had not slept in days. When she saw his eyes open, she smiled. "Welcome back," she said. "You have been the talk of the entire galaxy while you were sleeping." Daniel's throat was so dry, it hurt to speak. His voice came out rough and weak. "The Queen? Alive and completely unharmed, thanks to you. She has been asking about you every few hours since we got you out of there." Lisa paused, and her face became serious. "Daniel, what you did. The Crimson Shields ran away. But you, a human they barely respected, you stayed. You covered her with your own body." Daniel tried to shift in the bed and immediately regretted it. Pain flared across his back, like someone had lit him on fire again. It was the job. Someone had to do it. "It was not your job to die for her," Lisa said quietly. "You were an escort, not a sworn bodyguard. You could have run with the others. Nobody would have blamed you. Nobody would have even known." "I would have known," Daniel said simply. Lisa looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. "You really do not see it, do you? You do not understand what this means." "Understand what?" "You have changed everything, Daniel. The story is everywhere. Every species in the galaxy is talking about it. The elite alien guards who ran away, and the lone human who stood his ground against certain death. Do you know what that does to how people see us? How they see humans? Daniel had not thought about that. He had just been trying to save someone's life. I just did what anyone should do. But they did not do it, Lisa said. The legendary warriors ran. And you stayed. That means something. Whether you want it to, or not. Over the next few hours, Lisa filled him in on what had happened after he passed out. The Vax had retreated when their boarding party was destroyed. A Federation fleet had arrived and escorted Queen Valaris safely to the nearest Allied station. The entire crew of the Celestial Dawn had survived, though the ship itself was badly damaged. But the biggest news was what happened on the Tharn homeworld. Commander Thex and the surviving Crimson Shields had been stripped of everything. Their rank, their honor, their place in society. They had been exiled, sent away from their home, forever. In Tharn culture, this was worse than death. The Queen herself gave the order, Lisa explained. She said that those who abandon their duty in the face of danger have no place among the Tharn. It has caused a huge scandal. The Crimson Shields have been the royal guard for 1,000 years. This has never happened before. Daniel felt bad for them, despite everything. They were scared. Fear makes people do things they normally would not do. And that is exactly what makes what you did so special, Lisa said. You were scared too. You knew you were probably going to die. But you did it anyway. A doctor came in to check on Daniel. She was human. Middle-aged with kind eyes. She examined his back carefully, using a scanner to check the healing. You are very lucky, she said. The burns were severe, but they will heal. You will have some scars, but they should fade with time. Another few seconds of exposure and... She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. How long until I can get back to duty? Daniel asked. The doctor laughed. You nearly died saving an alien queen, and you are already thinking about going back to work? At least a few weeks, Lieutenant. Your body needs time to heal. After she left, Lisa leaned forward in her chair. Daniel, you need to understand something. When you get out of this bed, your life is going to be very different. You are a hero now. Earth's Council wants to give you medals. The Tharn Empire wants to honor you. Every news service in the galaxy wants to interview you. I do not want any of that, Daniel said. I just want to do my job. Too late, Lisa said, but she was smiling. You are stuck with it now. The human who stayed when the guards ran, that is your story now, and the whole galaxy knows it. Daniel closed his eyes, feeling tired despite having slept for 3 days. His back hurt, his whole body ached. But he was alive. More importantly, Queen Valaris was alive. Did we catch the people who hired the Vax? He asked. Lisa's smile faded. Not yet. But the Federation is investigating. Whoever paid for that attack spent a fortune. The Vax do not come cheap, especially not for a target as protected as a Tharn queen. Someone wanted her dead, very badly. Will she be safe now? The Tharn have tripled her security, and they are requesting human guards to be part of her protection detail. They specifically requested you. Once you recover. Daniel opened his eyes and looked at her. They want me to go back? The Queen herself asked for you. She says she trusts you with her life. After what you did, can you blame her? He thought about it. Going back meant more danger, more chances to die. But it also meant making sure she stayed safe. It meant finishing the job. Okay, he said. When I am healed, I will go back. Lisa smiled and squeezed his hand gently. I figured you would say that. Get some rest, hero. You have earned it. As she left, Daniel stared at the ceiling of the medical bay. He was not a hero. He was just a soldier who did his job. But if the galaxy wanted to see him as something more, if that helped build bridges between humans and other species, then maybe it was worth it. He closed his eyes and let sleep take him again, his dreams filled with fire and the sound of running feet. 2 weeks after the attack, Daniel was sitting in his medical bay room when he got an unexpected visitor. The door opened, and Queen Valaris herself walked in. She was alone, without even a single guard. Daniel tried to stand up, but she raised her hand to stop him. "Please, do not strain yourself on my account, Lieutenant Harper. You have already sacrificed enough for my sake." She pulled a chair close to his bed and sat down, moving with that grace that all Tharns seemed to have. Up close, Daniel could see that her skin was showing a deep gold color. He had learned enough about Tharn culture to know this meant deep emotion. "Your Majesty, I am glad to see you are well," Daniel said. "I am alive because of you," she replied. Her voice was soft but firm. "I wish to understand something, if you will allow me to ask. When the grenade fell, you had perhaps 3 seconds to react. In that time, every one of my guards, warriors trained from birth and sworn to die for the crown, they chose to run away. Yet you, who owed me nothing, who comes from a species my people have often dismissed as young and inexperienced, you ran towards certain death. Why? Cation. Cation." Daniel had been asked this question several times now by doctors and officers. But this was the first time it really mattered. This was the person whose life he had saved, asking him directly. "Your Majesty, I cannot speak for the Crimson Shields. I do not know what they were thinking in that moment. Maybe they thought they could get help. Maybe the fear was just too much. But for me, it was not really a choice. It was instinct. I saw someone in danger, someone I had been assigned to protect, and everything else just fell away. There was just the problem and the solution. You knew you would likely die," Queen Valaris said. "Yes, I knew. But I also knew that if I did nothing, you definitely would die. I could live with dying if I had to. I could not live with not trying to save you." The Queen was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "The Tharn have existed for thousands of years. We have built empires across many star systems. We have created laws and art that has lasted for ages. We pride ourselves on our honor and our long traditions. Yet in one moment of terror, all of that meant nothing. Our true nature showed itself, and it was ugly. While your species, barely a century into space travel, demonstrated the very honor we claim to have invented." She reached out and placed her hand on his. In Tharn culture, touching was rare and meaningful. It was a gesture reserved for family and the closest of friends. "You have taught me something important, Daniel Harper. Courage is not measured in years of tradition or fancy ceremonies. It is measured in the moment when everything is stripped away, and one must choose between saving yourself and doing your duty. You chose duty when even my most loyal guards chose to save themselves. They are probably very ashamed, Your Majesty," Daniel said. "Fear is powerful. It can make anyone run, even the bravest person. And that is exactly why your choice was so extraordinary," Queen Valaris said. "You felt the same fear they did. You knew you would die. Yet you mastered that fear and did what was right. You will be honored for this, Lieutenant. The Tharn Empire owes you a debt that can never truly be repaid." She stood to leave, but paused at the door. "I have requested that you be part of my security detail when you recover. I would be honored to have you serve again, if you are willing." "I would be honored, Your Majesty," Daniel replied. After she left, Daniel sat in his bed thinking about what she had said. He did not feel extraordinary. He just felt like someone who had done his job. But if it meant something to her, if it helped build trust between their peoples, then maybe the pain had been worth it. The days turned into weeks. Daniel's body healed slowly but surely. The doctors were amazed at how well he was recovering. The burns on his back were fading, turning from angry red to pink and then to pale white scars. During his recovery, he learned more about what was happening in the galaxy. The story of what he did had spread everywhere. It was on every news channel, discussed in every government building, talked about in every bar and cantina. From Earth to the far edges of explored space, humans, who had been viewed as newcomers and outsiders, were suddenly being seen in a new light. If one human could show such courage, what else were they capable of? What other surprises did this young species have? Lisa visited him often, bringing news from the outside world. "You have started something big," she told him one afternoon. "Earth's diplomatic channels are flooded with requests. 7 different species want to hire human security advisors. The Tharn Empire has offered a formal military alliance. Trade deals that have been stuck for years are suddenly moving forward again." "I am not a diplomat," Daniel protested. "I was just doing my job." "That is exactly what makes it powerful," Lisa said. "You did not do it for glory or politics. You did it because it needed to be done. That is the message the galaxy is hearing. Humans can be counted on when it matters most." One evening, Commander Thex came to visit. The former leader of the Crimson Shields looked different now. He was not wearing his fancy armor. His skin was a dull gray color that Daniel had learned meant shame and sorrow. "Lieutenant Harper," Thex said, his voice quiet. "May I speak with you?" "Of course," Daniel said. "Please, sit down." Thex sat. But he would not look Daniel in the eyes. "I came to apologize. What I did, what we all did, it was unforgivable. We ran when we should have stood. We abandoned our queen to save ourselves. And you, a human we had looked down upon, you showed us what real courage looks like. Commander, you were scared. Anyone would have been, but you were not," Thex said, finally looking up. "You were just as scared as we were. I could see it in your eyes in the moment before you ran toward the grenade. You knew you would die, but you did it anyway." "How? How did you overcome that fear?" Daniel thought about the question carefully. "I did not overcome the fear, Commander. The fear was there the whole time. It was screaming at me to run, just like it was screaming at you. But I had another voice in my head that was louder. It was the voice that said someone needed help, and I was the only one who could give it. I just listened to that voice, instead of the fear." Thex was silent for a moment. "My people are ashamed of me. I am exiled, forbidden from ever returning to my homeworld. My name will be remembered as the guard who failed. But I wanted you to know that I am grateful you were there. You saved our queen when I could not. For that, I thank you." After Thex left, Daniel felt a deep sadness. The commander had spent his whole life training to protect the royal family. One moment of fear had destroyed everything he had worked for. It seemed cruel. But Daniel also understood why it had to be that way. When you swear to protect someone, you have to mean it completely. A month after the attack, the doctors finally cleared Daniel for light duty. He could walk without pain now, though his back still ached when he moved too quickly. The scars were there, pale lines across his skin, but they were healing. On his first day out of medical, Lisa took him to see the celestial dawn. The ship had been repaired and was almost ready to fly again. As they walked through the corridors, crew members stopped to salute him or shake his hand. Many of them thanked him for what he did. "You are famous now," Lisa said with a smile. "How does it feel?" "Strange," Daniel admitted. "I keep expecting to wake up and find out this was all a dream." They walked to the spot where the grenade had exploded. The walls had been repaired, but Daniel could still see slight discoloration in the metal where the heat had been most intense. He stood there, remembering the fear, the pain, the choice he had made. "Would you do it again?" Lisa asked quietly. "If you could go back, knowing everything that would happen, would you still run toward that grenade?" Daniel did not hesitate. "Yes, every time. Because that is who I want to be. Someone who helps when help is needed. No matter the cost." Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. "The galaxy is lucky to have people like you, Daniel Harper. We all are." As they walked back through the ship, Daniel thought about the future. He would go back to protecting Queen Valaris. There would be more danger, more chances to die, but there would also be chances to make a difference, to show the galaxy that humans were worthy of respect. He touched the scars on his back through his uniform. They would always be there, a reminder of the day he chose duty over survival, but they were also proof that he had lived, that he had mattered, that he had made the right choice when it counted most. The human had stayed when the guards ran, and now the whole galaxy knew what that meant. 3 months after the attack, Daniel stood on the bridge of a new ship, watching the stars stream by through the viewport. He was back on duty, assigned to Queen Valaris's protection detail as promised. But things were very different now. The new security team was a mix of species. There were Tharn guards, but also humans, and even a few members of other races who had requested to serve. The attack had changed how the galaxy thought about protection and loyalty. Now, species that had never worked together before were learning to trust each other. Daniel's second-in-command was a woman named Kate Sullivan, a former Marine who had served in the same conflict he had. She was tough, smart, and did not care much for ceremony or politics. Daniel liked her immediately. "Still feels weird, does it not?" Kate said, standing next to him at the viewport. "Being famous, I mean, very weird," Daniel agreed. "I just did what needed doing. That is what everyone keeps saying. But it matters, boss. It matters a lot." She handed him a data pad. "Take a look at this. These are the alliance requests that have come in since your little stunt." Daniel scrolled through the list, his eyes widening. 12 different species had requested formal alliances with Earth. Trade agreements had tripled. Human security contractors were being hired across the galaxy. There were even requests for human military advisors to train other species' forces. "This is all because of what happened on the Celestial Dawn?" he asked. "Not just because of it," Kate said. "But it was the spark. People saw what you did, and it made them rethink everything they thought they knew about humans. We are not just the new kids anymore. We are the species that stands our ground." A message came through on Daniel's comm. It was from Queen Valaris, asking him to meet her in the observation deck. He excused himself and made his way through the ship. The observation deck was a large room with windows on all sides, giving a view of space in every direction. Queen Valaris stood at the center, her skin showing a calm blue color. She turned when Daniel entered. "Lieutenant Harper, thank you for coming." "Of course, Your Majesty. Is everything all right?" "Everything is well. I simply wished to speak with you privately." She gestured to the stars outside. "Do you know what those stars represent to the Tharn people?" "I am afraid I do not, Your Majesty. They represent our history. Every star we can see is a system we have explored, a world we have touched. For thousands of years, we believed we had seen everything the galaxy had to offer. We thought we understood courage, honor, loyalty. We thought our ways were the best ways." She turned to face him directly. "Then you showed us we were wrong. You showed us that true courage does not come from training or tradition. It comes from the heart, from the choice to do right, even when doing right means death. Your Majesty, I am sure your people have many brave warriors. We do. But when the moment came, when death was certain, they ran. Only you stayed. That is a lesson my people will not forget." She paused, her skin shifting to gold again. "I have been thinking about what happened, about why you stayed, and why my guards ran. Do you know what I concluded?" "No, Your Majesty." "The Crimson Shields had too much to lose. They had reputations, families, legacies that stretched back generations. When faced with certain death, they thought about all of that, and they chose to preserve their lives so those things would not be lost. But you are young. Your people are young. You had no legacy to protect, no ancient tradition to uphold. You were free to simply do what was right." Daniel considered her words. "With respect, Your Majesty, I think it was simpler than that. Your guards were thinking about themselves. I was thinking about you. That was the only difference. Queen Valaris smiled, something Tharn rarely did. Perhaps you are correct. Sometimes the simplest answer is the truest one. Over the following weeks, Daniel settled into his new role. He trained the mixed species security team, teaching them tactics he had learned in combat. He was surprised to find that he was good at it. The other species respected him, not because he was human, but because he had proven himself when it mattered. One day, a delegation arrived from the Tharn homeworld. They were officials from the royal court, and they carried news that surprised everyone. The Tharn government was creating a new award, the highest honor their civilization could give. It was called the Star of Valora. Named after an ancient Tharn hero, Daniel was to be the first person to receive it. Your Majesty, I cannot accept this, Daniel said when Queen Valaris told him. I do not deserve such an honor. You are the only person who deserves it, she replied firmly. You embodied everything the award represents. Courage, selflessness, duty, above self. The Tharn people wish to honor you, and you will accept because it is not just about you. It is about showing the galaxy what we value, what we aspire to be. And in 7, the ceremony was scheduled to take place on the Tharn homeworld in 1 month. Daniel would be the first human to ever visit the planet as an honored guest. The news spread quickly, and Earth's government sent messages of congratulations and pride, but not everyone was happy about Daniel's fame. There were humans who thought he had gotten lucky, that anyone would have done the same thing. There were aliens who resented humans getting so much attention. There were politicians who tried to use his story for their own gain. Daniel tried to ignore all of it. He focused on his job, on keeping Queen Valaris safe, on training his team to be the best they could be. But the pressure was always there, the weight of being a symbol instead of just a person. Late one night, unable to sleep, Daniel was in the training room working through combat drills. Kate found him there, sweating and breathing hard. Cannot sleep either, she asked. Too much on my mind, Daniel admitted. Kate picked up a training weapon and joined him in the drill. They moved through the patterns together, the familiar motions helping to clear their thoughts. You know what the hardest part is? Kate said after a while. Living up to what people think you are. Everyone sees you as this perfect hero, this example of everything humanity can be, but you are just a guy who made a split-second choice. Exactly, Daniel said. Grateful someone understood. I am not special. I am not perfect. I just did what seemed right in the moment. But that is exactly what makes you special, Kate said. You did not overthink it. You did not worry about the consequences. You just acted. Most people, when they have time to think, they talk themselves out of doing the brave thing. You did not give yourself that time. They finished the drill and sat down on the training mats, catching their breath. Do you regret it? Kate asked. All the attention, the pressure, the way your life changed? Daniel thought about it honestly. Sometimes, when I cannot go anywhere without people staring or asking questions. Yes, I regret it. But when I see the Queen alive and well, when I see the alliances being formed, when I see humans getting opportunities we never had before, no, I do not regret it at all. Good answer, Kate said with a smile. Because you are stuck with it now. You are Lieutenant Daniel Harper, the human who stayed. That is your legacy, whether you like it or not. As the day of the ceremony approached, Daniel received a message from Earth. It was from his family, his parents, and his younger sister. They had recorded a video to send to him. His mother was crying, but smiling. We are so proud of you, Daniel. You have made us proud your whole life. But this is something special. You showed the whole galaxy what it means to be human, what it means to be brave. We love you. His father, a retired Marine himself, had tears in his eyes too. You did good, son. You did what any Marine should do. You protected the innocent, and you did not back down. That is all any of us can ask. His sister, just 15 years old, was beaming. My brother is famous across the galaxy. Do you know how cool that is? Everyone at school wants to meet you. You are basically a superhero now. Watching the video, Daniel felt tears on his own cheeks. He missed his family. He missed Earth. But he knew he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he needed to do. The day before the ceremony, Queen Valaris asked to speak with him one more time. Tomorrow, you will receive the highest honor my people can give, she said. But I want you to know something. The medal, the ceremony, the recognition, these are nice, but the real impact of what you did cannot be measured in awards. You changed how the galaxy sees your people. You built a bridge between species that will last for generations. That is your true legacy, Daniel Harper. I just hope I can live up to it, Your Majesty. You already have, she said simply. The Tharn homeworld was beautiful beyond anything Daniel had imagined. The planet glowed with bioluminescent plants that covered the landscape in soft, shifting colors. Crystal towers reached toward the sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons that hung in the purple sky. Daniel stood in the Grand Hall, a massive structure that could hold thousands of people. Today, it was filled with representatives from over 100 different worlds. They had all come to witness the ceremony. He wore his dress uniform, cleaned and pressed until it was perfect. The scars on his back were hidden beneath the fabric, but he could still feel them, a reminder of the choice he had made. Kate stood nearby with the rest of his security team, all of them looking proud. Queen Valaris sat on her throne at the front of the hall. The throne was made of living crystal that seemed to pulse with light. Her skin showed a formal blue color, but Daniel could see hints of gold underneath. She was happy, he realized. Genuinely happy. Lieutenant Daniel Harper, her voice rang out across the hall. The entire room fell silent. Step forward. Daniel walked across the polished floor, very aware of all the eyes watching him. When he reached the base of the throne, he bowed in the Tharn fashion, one hand over his heart. He had practiced the movement dozens of times to get it right. You came to our service as a gesture of goodwill, Queen Valaris said. A simple assignment, meant to help our peoples understand each other better. But when darkness came, when death reached for us, you stood as no one else could. You placed duty above survival. You placed my life above your own. You showed courage that even our finest warriors could not match. She stood and descended from the throne, holding a medal that seemed to be made of captured starlight. It glowed with an inner fire, beautiful and strange. The Star of Valora has been awarded only 12 times in the 10,000-year history of the Tharn Empire. It is given to those who show the highest ideals of courage and sacrifice. Today, you become the 13th to receive this honor, and the first from beyond our species. She placed the medal around his neck. It was heavier than it looked, but comfortable. The assembled crowd began a harmonic hum, the Tharn way of showing deep respect. The sound filled the hall, vibrating in Daniel's chest. More than this, Queen Valaris continued, speaking now in a more personal tone. You have become a bridge between our peoples. The Tharn and humanity will forge a new alliance, built not on political convenience, but on demonstrated courage and proven trust. You have shown us that honor is not the property of any one species, but a quality that exists in all beings who choose to embrace it. The ceremony continued with speeches from various dignitaries. Each one spoke about what Daniel's actions meant to their people, how it had changed their view of humanity. Some of the speeches were long and formal. Others were short and heartfelt. Daniel tried to pay attention to all of them, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about the moment in the corridor, the grenade falling, the choice he had made. It had all happened so fast. If he had stopped to think, would he have run like the others? He liked to think he would have stayed, but he could never really know. The only thing that mattered was what he actually did. After the formal ceremony, there was a feast that lasted well into the night. Daniel found himself surrounded by people wanting to talk with him, to shake his hand, to hear his story. He tried to be polite to everyone, but it was exhausting. Finally, he managed to slip away to a balcony that overlooked the city. The 3 moons were high in the sky now, and the bioluminescent plants were glowing brighter in the darkness. It was peaceful here, away from the crowds. He was not alone for long. Lisa appeared beside him, holding 2 glasses filled with some kind of Tharn drink that glowed faintly blue. "Hiding from your admirers?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Just taking a moment to breathe," Daniel said, accepting the glass. "It has been a long day. You know this changes everything for Earth, right? We are not the newcomers anymore. We are the species that stood when others ran. There will be opportunities, responsibilities, new expectations." "I know," Daniel said quietly. "I have been thinking about that a lot." They stood in silence for a while, watching the alien city below. Vehicles moved through the air, their lights adding to the glow of the plants. In the distance, Daniel could see mountains that glittered like they were made of gems. "Do you regret it?" Lisa asked. "Throwing yourself on that grenade, knowing everything that would come after?" Daniel thought about the question carefully. It was not the first time someone had asked, and it would not be the last. But he wanted to give an honest answer. "No," he said finally. "If I had to do it again, knowing everything that would happen, I would make the same choice. Not because I am special or particularly brave, but because it was the right thing to do. Someone needed help, and I was there. That is all it was. That is what makes you exactly the right person for this," Lisa said. "You do not see yourself as a hero. You just see yourself as someone who did what needed doing." Queen Valaris found them on the balcony a short time later. She moved quietly, her footsteps barely making a sound. "Lieutenant Harper, I hope I am not interrupting." "Never, Your Majesty," Daniel said, bowing slightly. "I wanted to speak with you privately before you return to your ship," she said. "The alliance between our peoples is now formal and official. But I want you to know that for me, it is also personal. You gave me my life. You reminded me that true nobility is not found in titles or bloodlines. It is found in the choices we make when everything seems lost." She paused, her skin shifting to that warm amber color that meant affection. "The Crimson Shields who fled have asked to speak with you. They wish to apologize, to explain themselves. Will you grant them this?" Daniel had been expecting this. He bore the former guards no anger. "Of course, Your Majesty. I would be honored to speak with them. You are a gracious man, Daniel Harper. Your species is fortunate to have you, and the galaxy is better for your presence in it." She bowed to him, a queen bowing to a lieutenant, and then left them alone again. Lisa watched her go, shaking her head in amazement. "A Tharn queen just bowed to you. Do you know how significant that is?" "I am starting to understand," Daniel said. The next day, before returning to his ship, Daniel met with the former Crimson Shields. They gathered in a small private room, away from the crowds and ceremonies. There were 5 of them, including Commander Thex. All of them looked diminished somehow, like they had lost something essential. Thex spoke for the group. "We wanted to thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We know we do not deserve your time or your forgiveness." "You do not need my forgiveness, Commander," Daniel said gently. "You did not wrong me. If anyone deserves an apology, it is Queen Valaris. We have apologized to her. She has forgiven us, though we do not deserve it." Thex's skin was gray with shame. "But we wanted you to understand why we ran. We want you to know that it was not because we were cowards. I never thought you were cowards," Daniel said honestly. "You were scared. Fear is the most natural thing in the galaxy." One of the other former guards spoke up. A warrior named Crix. "We had families, Lieutenant. Children who needed us. Legacies that went back hundreds of years. When we saw that grenade, All we could think about was what we would lose if we died. We thought about our children growing up without us. We thought about our names being forgotten. The fear took over. And you? Thex asked Daniel. What did you think about in that moment? I did not think about anything, Daniel admitted. There was no time to think. I just saw the Queen in danger, and I reacted. If I had stopped to think about it, maybe I would have run too. I cannot say for certain, but you did not run, Thex said. That is what matters. That is what makes you different from us. Daniel shook his head. I am not different from you. I just did not give myself time to be afraid. That does not make me better. It just makes me lucky. The former guards looked at each other, their skin colors shifting in ways Daniel was still learning to read. Finally, Thex spoke again. You are generous to say so. We came here thinking you would judge us harshly. Instead, you show us understanding. This makes what we did even more shameful in our eyes. Then use that shame to become better, Daniel suggested. You cannot change what happened, but you can choose how you live from now on. You can choose to be the people who learn from their mistakes, instead of being destroyed by them. After the meeting, Daniel returned to his ship. The crew welcomed him back with cheers and applause. Kate met him at the airlock, grinning widely. So, how does it feel to be officially the most decorated human in the galaxy? Heavy, Daniel said, touching the star of Valora that hung around his neck. Very heavy. Back in his quarters that night, Daniel stood in front of the mirror and looked at himself. The metal gleamed on his chest. His uniform was perfect, but underneath it all, he was still just Daniel Harper, a kid from Colorado who had joined the military to see the stars. He removed his shirt and turned to look at his back. The scars were there, pale and smooth now. They would never fully disappear. But he did not mind them. They were proof that he had lived through something important, that he had made a difference. He thought about everything that had happened since that moment in the corridor. The pain, the recovery, the ceremony, the weight of being a symbol. It was a lot to carry, but when he thought about Queen Valaris alive and well, about the alliance between their peoples, about the opportunities opening up for humanity, he knew it was worth it. A message came through on his personal comm. It was from Earth's military command. They wanted to know if he would be interested in heading up a new program to train mixed-species security teams. It was a huge responsibility, a chance to shape how humans and aliens work together for years to come. Daniel sat down and composed his reply. He accepted the position. It was what he was good at, what he had proven he could do, and it was a way to make sure that what happened to him, the lesson he had learned, would spread to others. The human had stayed when the guards ran. And now, he would teach others to stay as well, to choose duty over fear, to act when action was needed. It was not about being a hero, it was about being ready when the moment came. About making the choice that needed to be made. As his ship prepared to leave the Tharn homeworld, Daniel looked out at the stars once more. Somewhere out there were new challenges, new dangers, new moments where courage would be tested, but he was ready for them. He touched the metal on his chest and the scars on his back. Both were part of him now, reminders of who he had been and who he had become. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see what humans would do next. Daniel smiled. Let them watch. He and his people would show them what humanity was made of. One choice at a time. One moment of courage at a time. The story of the guard who ran and the human who stayed was just the beginning. The real story was still being written, with every decision, every action, every time someone chose to stand instead of flee. And Daniel Harper, the human who had stayed, was ready to help write that story.